Hello, all. Good morning. This is really fantastic. Thank you so much, Suruni and Anne Marie, for bringing us all together and women empowering women. What a great example you have set. And Vivian, that was a great presentation. And I am so thrilled to hear all the brilliant, amazing ideas from all these trailblazers here. And I'm so humbled to be part of this as well. So today we will talk about sustainability and how can we enhance sustainability and related efforts. So addressing the planet sustainably. NC John Apparel, I am the Global Sustainability and Innovation Lead. So I would like to talk about how to address the planet sustainably. 828 million. So 828 million. That is the figure which is the global impact of hunger. Just think about it, 828 million. And every 3.6 seconds, a child dies because of hunger. So why am I bringing the hunger here when we are talking about textiles, right? So the biggest driver of hunger is extreme weather and climate change. So if you look at the staggering impact of drought, you can see Lake Mead, the NASA images from 2000 to 2022, you can see the Overton Arm is almost, Virgin River is almost disappearing. So that's a stark illustration of climate change. So all the scientific evidences clearly say that our planet is stressed. What is at stake? All life on our planet, right? So we all can choose to be a victim or we can take charge. So at NCJ, we are taking charge. And because textiles are responsible for 10% of the global emissions, you can talk about fast fashion, pollution, long hours, exploitation, harmful dyes, underpaid, overworked, child labor, contamination, use and throw. There are umpteen things we can talk about and which are seen as the opportunities which we can improve. And I can see throughout our presentations today, we all were focused on how can we improve serving Mother Earth. So let's look at this. How NCJ is improving Mother Earth. So at NC John, which is also the parent company of Unmoda or Envied Future, our mantra is in living in harmony with nature. It's a purpose-driven initiative with 100% recycled and organic materials to nourish a proud community of our employees, customers, and healing Mother Earth. So we did speak about the ESG values when you talk about the environment, social, and the governance values. We really focus on our employees and the community and the customers. So making sure there's a fair trade with everybody involved, like whether it is employees or the customers or the vendors. We are also focused on designing our product around the SDGs or the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 SDGs given by United Nations. This is how we are trying to be the most, how we are designing our product to be the most sustainable knitwear by 100% renewable energy used to power our factory. So when you say renewable energy, we have our own wind farms and solar energy farms. So that is how we are powering our factories. And we have water reduction throughout the life cycle of the product. And we, for example, like when we talk about the source of our cotton, which is one of us, Cotton Australia. So we visited the cotton farms in Australia last month, and you could see like the hectares of the huge cotton farms. It is like so driven or controlled by each lane of the cotton plants, or like the temperature and the canopy temperature and the moisture of each lane is taken by the geospatial data, and the irrigation is managed by each lane's data than like talking about the entire acres of the farm. So that is how they are optimizing and making sure the sustainable water is managed. So starting from the cotton farms. And when we talk about the factory or the manufacturing processes, all our wet processes are thoroughly optimized for the water reduction. And we only use the GOT certified dyes, which are organic, mineral based and chemical free. We use sustainable fabrics and yarns, and we minimize plastic usage. And it's not just about minimizing plastic usage. We take toxic ocean garbage, which contains PET bottles, mainly like plastic, and we recycle them and make them into polyester clothes. So that is how we are ensuring that our factory is carbon neutral. And on top of that, we also use the zero norms. So there is zero wastage from, if you're talking about making the fabric, like when we cut the fabric, or if there's any little wastage from that fabric apparel making process, we make sure those are reused in any other multiple other forms. So our labs mainly focus on material science and process innovation. How can we recycle PET or plastic? So when we talk about PET, the biodegradation, the entire process, the cycle, when it ends up in a landfill, the duration is around 200 years. So when you recycle the PET, we can add elements or catalysts which can improve the carbon absorption and also improve or reduce the duration of the biodegradation process from that 200 years. So we also focus on our dyes, making sure those are natural and organic dyes. And the main focus of this discussion is on circularity and blockchain and how technologies can enhance our process. So this is a supply chain. If you look at that cotton apparel, so starting from the farm where the raw cotton is made into fiber bales, and then the yarn formation happens at the ginning and the spinning, and then it is like shipped for fabric formation, and then the finished fabric and the wet process, the dyeing, etc. happens. So these are the main processes before the garment production, where it is cut and sewed and designed. So here, and then it goes to the wholesaler, retailer, and end consumer. So if you look at it, it is, even though it is like an oval-shaped flow right here, it's pretty much a linear, one-ended, one-directional flow at this point, right? It ends in the end customer. So what we are trying, so what it ends up is like the end customer, which is here, all the fabrics, and which is like thrown away or going into the recycle bin. That ends up in the textile mountain or the hidden burden of our fashion waste. So if you look at that, United States generates 25 billion pounds of textiles. So just imagine 82 pounds per person, that is what is produced. And out of that 82 pounds which is produced, 70 pounds goes to landfills. So just imagine that exorbitant amount of the landfill waste which is going. So what we need to do to reduce it is like the traceability. How can we enhance the traceability, authenticity, the demand supply of the inventory management and the circularity? So let's talk about how technologies can help, like mainly blockchain, AI, and IoTs. How can that help in making that linear supply chain into a circular one, and which can be traced, which can be identified, and which can be optimized. So we can, when we went to Australia, the Cotton Australia, they had like RFIDs, like tracking, starting from the farm bales, like they had IoT sensors and RFIDs, and that will give like real-time information of each of that bale, where it is, what is the condition, what are the basic parameters which are related to that cotton spinning and yarn and all those processes. And it ships to the fabric making, which is the NC John Apparel, our company. And what we prototyped during the Metaverse Fashion Week is for how can we phygitalize that garment, right? So when we phygitalize the garment, we have the NFC smart tags, which is like near field communication smart tags. So what happens with the smart tags is you can include all the related information from the source to the customer's information in that, like about the material, about the processes, about the certification of all each of that process, like is the farmer certified, is the ginner certified, is the shipping company following the processes, how is their social and the fair trade values, how are they treating the human labor, is there any child labor, so all of that can be included in that blockchain information, and that can be attached to the smart tag. And what the advantage of that is, like, it is completely traceable, end-to-end traceable, and it's all made verified and made abides by the smart contract rules on blockchain. So that means nobody can change it. It is completely immutable and it's completely trustable. So those NFC tags, once it is on the fabric as a tag or a label, there are various forms of phygitalizing using NFC. So that can be using your cell phone. You can trace it, and you can see the entire information on the blockchain itself. So that is how the technology like blockchain and the NFC and the IoT can help the supply chain. Let's talk about the next element of the circularity of the supply chain, right? We just spoke about the technology, but like, how can we really make the supply chain a circular one, right? So till now, we were talking about how from the farmer, the source, it ends up with the customer, and the customer, it can be a when we phygitalize the NFC, it can be a digital twin, which is an NFT, which resides in the metaverse, right? So we are good till here, and digitalizing is an amazing way to reduce fashion waste as well, like how we just discussed with various of the brilliant ladies which we just heard from. So let's talk about how the 5 Rs are improving or making the linear supply chain into a circular supply chain. So reuse, recycle, refurbish, reprocess, or repair, right? So those are the main ways of how we can circularize the supply chain. So basically, we are trying to reverse logistic the system, right? How can you reverse, like, from the end customers, the end customers recycling or the waste or the returned fabrics ending up in the textile mountain of landfills? How can you really reuse that? How can we receive that fabric which is to be recycled? How can we sort that? Because sorting is a huge issue, because we are talking about tons of fabric. Like, if you look at it, the enormous the 82 billion pounds of fabric, right, which needs to be sorted. So no human can really sort it, right? So how can you receive that from global location? How can you sort that? How can we reprocess, or we can repair, reuse, recycle, or refurbish it? So that is the main ways we are talking about. So the ways of circularity, if you're talking about, there's physical downcycling, there is upcycling, or there's chemical recycling, right? So those are the main 3 ways I wanted to focus here. So when you talk about physical downcycling, so physically, like, the textile waste is shredded into lower value products like shreds, right? So when we went to Australian cotton farms, what they do is they're experimenting with shredding that textile waste and adding it to their own soil as a compost. During the composting process, they are adding those shreds. And this can also be used for insulation materials. So that is another way of downcycling or reusing that, physically reusing those shredded textile waste. The way is upcycling. So basically reprocess that entire, so we remove the parts like buttons or zips, which are physical things. And then the fabric, the plain fabric of that apparel goes through shredding. So when it goes through shredding, it opens the textile waste into staple fibers, and then we are respinning it, and we will add virgin fibers to enhance the strength of it. So here we are talking about 100% cotton fabric, right? So that is when we can open up that fibers and we can reuse it. The research is also being done on blended fabric, because many of the apparels are blended at this point, right? So we cannot just reopen the virgin fibers, but we have to use a pulping process at that point, like cellulosic pulping process for reusing the blended fabric. But that is in research, and that is prototyped in many of the firms at this point. And the third one we want to talk about is the chemical recycling, right? So as we just discussed, like polyester, it resides in the landfills for 200 years until it is biodegraded. So adding the carbon sequestration or absorbing materials, right, and adding catalysts to assist the biodegradation. So that is in research, and that way, depolymerization into original monomers. So we are like simplifying the elements of the polyester. So that is what we can do, and we can mechanically shred them, melt them, and extrude it back into the polyester filaments itself. So those are like the three main ways of circular processing I wanted to discuss here, right? So you can see what happens when you do this circularity, or when we do the reprocessing, right? So if you look at this, if you remember the main steps of the circular supply chain starting from the farms. So the planting, seeding, the water management, the soil, then the seed removal, then the spinning, right? All of these are such an energy intensive process. So we are respinning and regenerating the virgin fiber there from the used fabric. So we are eliminating this multiple steps of farming the cotton, and also the seed removal, the ginning, and the yarn spinning, right? So we are eliminating and saving carbon emissions by opening those waste fibers. So that is how we can accelerate the circularity. So this is those are the main ways to we can enhance the circularity: the physical upcycling, the chemical upcycling, and remanufacturing the real staple fiber. So let's deep dive into how can we really, let me look at the time. So how can we really, use like NFCs? So this is a sweat set, which we prototyped during the Metaverse Fashion Week 2023. So we had the Metagen smart tags, or the NFCs, embedded in our phygital products. So this, when you say phygital, we will have a physical physical version of your dress or the sweatshirt, and you will have a digital version of that same sweatshirt. So it's a fine line between the physical and the digital at this point, right? With the metaverse, we are like almost merging that metaverse and the real world. So many of the teenagers at this point, like, they ask, "What is real? Is in metaverse real?" Like, whatever you can feel is real, right? So there's like a very fine line between digital and physical. So it's merged and into a phygital concept or idea at this point. And our research is on how to get this end to end into blockchain, and use like the source to origin tracking, and how can we improve the circularity, track the authenticity, and reduce the carbon footprint by using NFC tags and digital NFTs. So this is how we can going circular with the data, right? Like once we have all of these data on the materials, like what does the NFC tag information give you, right? Traceability of all materials, like washing instruction. It will give you like what materials went in, what is the digital version of the decent brand, who is the owner, and it will give you the entire history of the transaction which went into it, in addition to the loyalty club and upselling personalized marketing information. So when this traceability of materials why is it like very important, right? So there are companies like circularity.id, which is like a leader in this area. So they have like developed this open data standard. So because when we talk about getting the recycling, collecting the recycling materials in the store, so there are many stores like H&M and Patagonia who have like the collection points in the store itself, right? So we're talking about global kind of collection stores, right? So all this data like of this recollected materials that needs to follow a common standard, and that way we can use it like it needs to be a collaborative effort than like a one brand or one company or one individual doing it, right? So that is how this open data standards are very important at this point, because it provides transparency and traceability, and everybody can understand because it is a common standard which we are using to understand the data and the frameworks of that recollection process and the materials, etc. So there is this product identifier which goes with the circularity.id, and similar to the NFC tag which I just showed you. So it gives you insight on the material components, origin, and what are the services where you can take it for repair, redesign, reuse, etc. So let's talk about the sorting, which is like the huge, as the piling mountains of recycled fabric is not manually sortable, right? How can we handle that situation? So there is this computer vision, AI-based computer vision, which can once the recycled fabric can be sent through the sorter, it can sort it based on the color or the texture. So that is being researched on, and Raman spectroscopy is one of the color-based sorting technology or the principle which is being used for this automated sorting using the computer vision. So NFC with the material info, as we just discussed, right? So the NFC it's a near field capture. So if a robot can automatically scan that tag with the NFC, it will have all the material information, and it can go to which sorting line based on that physical tag. So just imagine 5 years from now, like European regulations are mandatory now that you have to follow certain rules, right? So the same way, if the digital tagging is like a mandatory thing for all the apparels, so 5 years from now, it will be so easy for automated sorting and solving this issue. So just look forward to this infinite possibilities. Also, one more thing I wanted to add is when you collect these materials, we have to avoid shipping these things globally, right? So when you're collecting and when you're shipping it to another continent, what are we doing there again? We are again adding carbon footprint of that shipping. So we need to make sure we are geographically optimizing the collection points and the remanufacturing points there, right? So regenerative AI-based smarter supply chains can optimize this by analyzing what is the data related to, what is the nearest collection point, or what is the nearest remanufacturing process, what is their lead times, the transportation logistics, and all of that can be the generative AI models can help all the brands. If you do this recycling as a collaborative effort, as a global effort, which we can make it into a very data-driven process, optimize it, and optimize the supply chain and the regenerative process. So that is all I wanted to talk about today. A very important topic, and all of you trailblazers out there, I just enjoyed the discussion. Such a brilliant discussion and such a relevant topic. Talking about how the linear supply chain is transforming into a circular one with all this technology, and not only just the technology. How are we adding the ESG values, especially the social values, the human values, the child labor or the fair trade, the working environment, so the human values to that supply chain as well, right? And how can we make it circular using the upcycling, various types of upcycling. So the clock is ticking, right? We all are, in the fight of our lives, and we are losing. Stand up for Mother Earth. Come join the movement to reverse and restore. For us, sustainability is not just a job. It's a way of living in harmony with nature. Thank you.